In a world where power is often measured by wealth and status, one man is about to prove that true influence lies in something much deeper. Darius Col Train, a self-made CEO, walks into the Lexington Tower Hotel, ready to finalize a life-changing deal. But what should have been a moment of triumph quickly turns into a test of character, when an unexpected slight triggers a decision that no one saw coming. Darius will show the world that sometimes silence speaks louder than words. This is the story of quiet strength, integrity, and the power of knowing when to walk away. Darius Col Train was never one to boast. As the CEO of Lucent Applied Technologies, he had built his empire from the ground up, brick by brick, sweat by sweat. The company had become a symbol of innovation, the kind of success stories that Wall Street adored and corporate boards revered. But none of that mattered when he stepped into the Lexington Tower Hotel in Dallas on that fateful Tuesday morning. His navy suit was impeccably tailored, his Centurion black card tucked neatly in his wallet, silent symbols of the empire he had built. The merger with the Benley Group, valued at $3.8 billion, was set to change his life forever. It was supposed to be a simple, straightforward meeting that would cement his place at the top of the corporate world. But as soon as he entered the hotel, things began to unravel in ways he couldn't have predicted. At the front desk, the clerk, Megan, glanced up at Darius as he approached, her eyes immediately drawn to the gleam of his black card, which he held in his hand as if it were an extension of his identity. Without a word, Megan's lips curled into a smile that was anything but warm. Her voice was low, but there was no mistaking the disdain laced in her tone. "Must be nice to carry one of those," she muttered, loud enough for a couple of nearby guests to hear. Darius froze. His heart didn't race. His breath didn't quicken. He had heard this kind of thing before. He knew the feeling of being sized up, judged before he even spoke. But this was different. The mockery wasn't just for him. It was a reflection of something deeper, something that was far more insidious than a moment of personal slight. The small laugh that followed from Megan, accompanied by the whispered comments from the guests around the desk, rippled through the air like a stone dropped in water. Darius didn't flinch. Instead, he reached for his phone with a calmness that almost seemed calculated. His finger swiped across the screen, finding the contact number of the Benley Group's lead negotiator. He dialed without hesitation. "Mr. Col Train, we're ready to finalize everything," came the voice on the other end, filled with anticipation. "Cancel the deal," Darius said, his voice firm but measured. There was a brief silence before the negotiator responded. "What, sir? We've been working on this for months." "This deal is, I know exactly what it is," Darius interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "It's canceled." He hung up before this man could respond, and without a word to anyone else, he turned and walked out of the lobby, leaving the stunned hotel staff and guests behind him. The silence was deafening, but Darius knew that his actions would speak louder than any words could. As he stepped out into the bright Texas sunlight, he felt an odd sense of relief. The merger had been a massive opportunity, one that many would have fought tooth and nail for. But to Darius, it was never about the money or the prestige. It was about respect, something that couldn't be bought. Back at the hotel, Kelsey Durham, the assistant manager, rushed to the front desk when she heard what had just transpired. Her eyes widened as she learned that the man they had just mocked was, in fact, Darius Col Train, the founder and CEO of Lucent Applied Technologies, one of the largest tech companies in the world. Megan's face turned pale as she realized the enormity of the mistake. "Do you understand what you've just done?" Kelsey demanded, her voice tinged with panic. "That man could have bought this entire hotel with a snap of his fingers." "And you," Megan stammered, but Kelsey didn't wait for an answer. She grabbed her phone and immediately called the Benley Group to try and salvage the deal. But it was too late. The news had already spread like wildfire through the corporate world. The merger was off. Darius didn't know it yet, but the backlash was already beginning. By the time he checked into a quieter, more modest boutique hotel later that day, his name was trending on social media. News outlets picked up the story of the incident, and what started as a personal slight soon turned into a corporate crisis. The hotel's behavior was being branded as racial profiling, and the story was spreading beyond the walls of the business world. For Darius, the silence of the situation was louder than any press release. He didn't need to explain himself to anyone. His actions had already done the talking. He knew that some people would never understand the weight of his decision, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that he had taken a stand, not with a confrontation, but with quiet strength. That night, as Darius sat alone in his room, the reality of the situation began to settle in. His thoughts turned to his journey, his humble beginnings, the academic rejections, the countless moments when people had underestimated him, doubted his abilities, or assumed he was someone's assistant just because of the color of his skin. The experiences had shaped him, and over the years, he had learned one very important lesson. True power was not about making noise or being seen. It was about knowing when to walk away, when to hold your ground, and when to let your silence speak for you. The next morning, as social media continued to buzz with the hotel incident, Darius gave a speech to a group of young professionals at a leadership seminar. His words were calm, but they carried the weight of everything he had experienced. When they question your place at the table, he said, remember you are the table. And if they can't recognize that, you don't owe them a seat, Mo. The room went quiet as his words sank in, and for a brief moment, Darius saw the faces of the young men and women before him light up with a newfound understanding. They weren't just hearing a lesson on business, they were hearing a lesson on life, on integrity, and on the quiet power that comes from knowing your worth. The aftermath of the hotel incident reverberated far beyond what anyone had expected. Corporate executives, particularly at the Benley Group, were left scrambling to figure out what had gone wrong. The cancellation of the merger was not just a financial blow, it was a wake-up call. The issue of racial profiling in corporate spaces was suddenly front and center, and the debate sparked a broader conversation about the biases that still persisted in even the most elite circles. In the weeks that followed, Darius found himself at the center of a larger movement, one that challenged the status quo and forced corporations to confront the uncomfortable truths they had long ignored. But through it all, he remained composed, his actions speaking louder than any words ever could. By the time the dust settled, Darius had walked away from a multi-billion-dollar deal. But he had gained something far more valuable, a deep sense of respect from the very community that had once dismissed him. The incident at the Lexington Tower Hotel had become more than just a corporate blunder. It had become a turning point, a powerful moment in the fight against systemic bias in the business world. Darius Col Train may have lost a deal, but in doing so, he had won something far more significant: the trust and admiration of those who truly understood the price of power, the value of silence, and the importance of standing up for what's right.